All right, guys, so Jim just left this morning. He had drove over and we got the rocker arms adjusted since I put the new lifters in. So Steve had a rocker arm over here that was clacking pretty bad from the get-go. From the very first start of this new engine, it was clacking, and no matter how you adjusted it, it kept clacking. So anyway, if you didn't catch that video, I put new lifters in it, and the one that was giving us problems, I took it apart and it was sticking inside of itself. Something's messed up in there. But anyway, now it's got new lifters in it, and I put the intake and distributor, all that stuff back on, put the coolant back in it, and Jim showed up this morning and we adjusted the rocker arms and all that and got that all done, got it dialed in. Very quiet. I'll put in a clip of that so you can hear it. Sounds really awesome. I don't actually know what it sounds like because I had it backed out underneath the carport. That carport vibrates, the metal tin does, so it might sound funny in the camera. I don't know, we'll wait and see, but if anything, you should be able to hear the lope of the cam. So now I'm to the point where I can start getting some work done on the car. I have to pull all the wiring out of the car because he bought a rain gear wiper system that goes behind the dash, and it takes up a lot of room. And it made me have to move the fuse panel. Well, the fuse panel wiring now it's a cut-to-fit universal kit that I put in like 15 years ago. It's not long enough to reach for everything, and I don't want to just extend wires, especially going to an ignition switch. I just don't feel that that's safe long term. So I told Steve we might as well just rewire the whole car. So that's what he did, and I'll show you the harnesses there that he got. But I'm going to go ahead and rip all the wiring out of the car, front to back, just get every bit of it out of here. I'm going to go ahead and install the rain gear system. Then I'm going to wire the car because I'll be able to wire around that. That'll already be there in the way when I go to mount stuff, you know what I mean? So that's the plan. I'm going to be moving all of the audio side of the car, like for the speakers and all that stuff. I'm going to route that wiring underneath the carpet on that side, underneath the panel over there that goes in the floor. And then all the taillight wiring harness will be over here. So I'm going to kind of separate it, because right now I've got everything stacked together and it's too tall over here on this side. So I did talk to him on the phone a while ago about an amplifier. If he wants to put an amp on the stereo system, now's the time to do it, because I have to rewire everything. I mean, the radio's even unplugged and sitting there. So I took a picture of a Kicker 4-channel amp. It's 90 watts times 4. 90 watts is plenty to go into some 6x9s and some 3.5s, so that will be perfect. However, I don't know if he wants to do a subwoofer or not. I don't know if he's going to want a woofer and all that in the back of this thing. But anyway, what speakers and stuff will be just fine. So I'm going to mount the amp over there on that side underneath the seat. And I'll probably build a nice little panel for that and stuff. But I've actually done one for my wife's 4-door a long time ago. And if I can find her amp thing that I built, I'll get it out and show it in a video. But I'm pretty happy. I get to rewire the car and get that going. So I'll talk about those harnesses here in just a second. It rattles the tin on my... Well, the stripping of the old wiring has begun, and oh man, look at that mess, would you? Trying to pull everything all clustered up right there. So now I need to undo the solenoid wire and the positive post on the starter solenoid wire. So basically the starter harness piece. But so I had, you can see all the tape sleeves. I had tape on all this stuff before going back there when I wired it a long time ago, and then when I added the gas door stuff on when I was working at Steve's house on it, trying to get it finished, I taped that to this, and it was huge. It was a huge mass of wires going through here. and I don't think it's going to fit all of it underneath that panel that goes here, which he got new ones. They're right here. So this is the panels that go on both sides, and I'm not sure where he got these. H&H. Let's see if H&H has a part number there. They sure do. 953. So this is just the front two. Like the two-door sedan, I think it has a little small one that's kind of back in the back. And this is a hard top, so it doesn't have that. So this is just all he needs is these two. But if you have a two-door sedan, it actually takes another one back behind that one. And I think it's on both sides. I don't remember. So I'm going to get to stripping more wiring out of here. And I've got a, there's a wire in that harness and it's third brake. And I had it wired up with something. So I don't need to work my way back and see what I had wired that to. Because that was, you know, around 15 years ago, man. That's, I've slept a lot since then. But I don't know what I'd have used that for. I don't remember. I guess I'll figure it out once I get it all stripped down, though. I used, I remember going to Walmart and getting this speaker wire. I think I had some here when I wired his car before. I had some here, and I used it, and I didn't have enough, so I went to Walmart and got another thing of it. And this stuff's kind of small. Those 6x9 kickers we got have pretty large magnets on them, and you know, this would probably be okay, but we're going to run an amp on it, so I think I'm going to have him get some bigger speaker wire. And the one that I gave him, it's a little on the stiff side. This one's still pliable, but this old red one that I'd used it's getting pretty old. No telling how long I'd had that before I put it in his car for him. But and again, that's me trying to save my cousin a little money by using crap that I had back then, so I still try to do that. Sometimes it doesn't work out for us, you know what I mean? But I mean, we're rewiring it. We might as well put all new anyway. But I'll tell you one thing, I'm for sure going to rewire all brand new, and that's the dome light wiring. Now, before this car had the headliner in it. When I wired it, it had the headliner in it, and I didn't want to take anything loose. But that is the original orange and white wire for the double dome lights. 55 only, two-door hardtop only, are the ones that have the lights in the corners. 56 and 7 took a big dome up here. So anyway, that wire runs across there and then down through the pillar, and it's rather difficult to get down through there. But what I'm noticing is the previous shop actually run a piece of wire up there for that wire to be able to pull it back through. So that is nice. So I do appreciate that. But anyway, I'm gonna get some new orange and new white wire and run all brand new dome light wires, because we sure don't want to leave wiring in here from 54 or 55. All right, so getting ready to start switching parts over to this new Edelbrock AVS2. I talked about this before. This is a redesign of Edelbrock's famous Carburetor, which basically started out as Carburetor AFB. Anyway, this has annular boosters, or they did something, and these have a lot more bottom end response to them. So it's an improved design, which I think is kind of cool. And Steve's throttle blades shaft was pretty worn, so the car had oddball idle going on. So I went ahead and bought a new carburetor, so this is going to work out pretty good. This electric choke, and this is the ground they send you for that electric choke, which is way too long. So I am going to put the eyelet underneath that screw right there, and I'm going to cut this wire down and recrimp it, but I'm going to put black heat shrink over these ends so you don't see the crimped part. I think that's cheesy. So I'm going to redo this wire and make it look a lot cleaner. I need to change this out because we have the chrome fuel line that goes down and comes out for that filter. And then I need to put this plug in the back of it back here. And I will not be using this stud because I have one custom made already for his air cleaner. But I do have to put the linkage off the other carburetor, the throttle geometry corrector bracket. It is a must for a 700R4 or 204R transmission. You must have this, because this over time can burn up your 700R4 if it doesn't have it. They make these for Edelbrock's and they make them for a Holley style carburetor. It is where the stud is for the TV cable, basically, and it has to have the proper angle of rotation to work properly on the transmission. So anyway, if you're gonna put a 700R4 or a 204R automatic in your overdrive in your old car, make sure you have the geometry corrector bracket. These are all over Summit and Jegs. There used to be a write-up at Monster Transmissions about a throttle geometry corrector bracket, so you can read all about it over there if you want. But anyway, no doubt you can just put that little ball stud on down here and rock and roll, and it'll seem okay, and then over time your transmission will just burn up. But anyway, in case you didn't know. And then another thing that I think is 100% a necessity nowadays, if you're stuck running unleaded fuel with 10% ethanol, you need a phenolic carb spacer. It is a necessity, because the ethanol lowers the boiling point of the fuel and can cause vapor lock or fuel boil in the float bowls. And you'll only notice it when it's everything's up to temp and hot. And I've only ever had it happen to me in the summertime. I haven't ever had it happen to me in the winter time. But anyway, a phenolic carb spacer is a necessity. I just use a little bitty thin one. I think you can get those 3/8 of an inch thick, but mainly what I run is a 1/2 inch, but I'll use a 3/8 if I have to. I mean, I don't want something giant on there, you know what I mean? But anyway, I always get the 4-hole because it's, it's kind of like the carburetor's 4-hole anyway, so, dual plane intake, I should say. If you're running an open throat intake, like a single plane intake that doesn't have the divider down the middle, then get the open one. But for me, mainly the stuff I run is dual plane intakes. They're separate from this side to that side, so I run the 4-hole. It's just me. You can do it however you want. I'm just telling you. Somebody's going to ask, I'm sure. Anyway, I'm going to transfer stuff over and get this carburetor put on. All right, so I use the American Auto wire crimpers, which in my opinion are the best. Anyway, if you have the connectors, which I got this set from eBay, and it's just a multi-pack, but it's the double crimp. So it crimps the copper part of the wire, and then the very rear it crimps the shielding of the wire, so you get double crimp out of it. But I like these non-insulated connectors, and then you put heat shrink on it. It looks very, very professional. It looks way better than having this cheesy crap like this on there. So anyway, you have to crimp the connector twice basically, but that's what you get when you're finished. I actually stripped off the wire just a hair too much, but it still worked just fine. But the copper part's crimped and it folds it in just like it's supposed to. But they do a really awesome job over the old school smash, set. You put a barrel connector on or crimper connector and then you just smash it. This actually crimps it on there. I remember getting to an argument one time with a guy at the parts store of all places, and he was talking about a 57 Chevy he was working on, and he's trying to find somebody to wire the car and needed all new wiring in it. He said, I can't find anybody that wants to solder all the connections like factory. And I said, they didn't solder the connections from factory. I said they were crimped, and he argued with me. No, they're soldered. I was like, no, they're not. And anyway, I ended up telling him, I said, did you even pull some of the wiring out of the car to look at it? No, I haven't done that yet. I said, we're going to find no soldered connections. They're going to be crimped, just like that. So, anyway, you don't have to solder all the connections of wires. If you're using a crimper tool like that to get professional results like that. Now, I've got both sets of them. They are expensive, but they're worth the money. I've got the blue ones, which does a little bit bigger wire, but the yellow ones are kind of like the basic sizes. But it's amazing to me how much better wiring looks when you don't use connectors like you get at any parts store or farm and ranch store, like this. See, it has a big plastic shielding on it right there, and then you smash connect it, crimp it, and it looks like garbage. But if you pull that yellow sleeving off, which I can't do one-handed, you'll see that that connector at the top of it is split right there. So that is why you would use the American Auto Wire crimpers. So it'll fold that in and do the exact same thing, and then you can put heat shrink on it and shrink it, and it looks 10 times better than this generic looking stuff. But again, that's just me. You can wire how you want, but to me, this will look way more professional than the way it was. I haven't heat shrunk the wire on that end yet, but I did do that one. And I actually just cut a notch in that factory ring that was on this wire already. That way I don't have to pull that screw all the way out. I just lift it up there a little bit, and then that'll slip in under there, and then it'll loop around to this for the ground for the electric choke. Well, I got Steve's column out here. This is, I don't know what brand this is, but this is one of them, you know, later style tilt columns, and it's stainless. He had told me one time to go ahead and sand and polish this to make it look chrome, which I think it'd look better anyway. So I'm looking at it, and they've already got the little pins on the end of the column switch wiring, which is pretty awesome, because I think the Easy Wire kit has that plug that I need, but I don't know if it has both of them. I'll have to look. This should have come with a plug. I would have thought it had already been on there myself, but I do have a question on this column, because when you look at this, there's a couple of different styles of levers out there, and this and this, these don't match. These are not the same. Usually it's the grooved ones, it has this, and one matches for this because it matches that. So this, when you look at it, is loose. So I don't think this came with that column. I think this got put on from another column. Now to me, this one looks more close to original. So what if this was my column, I would mask off the stem here, and I would etch black the end of that. Just do etch black on there, like black etching primer, because it has a semi-gloss look and it'll stick to that, but it'll look more stock. This I can't really do that with. The hazard button is not that big a deal. I could paint it all black and it'd kind of disappear. But anyway, so I might go try to look for a tilt lever that is correct for this turn signal switch lever, because to me that would bug the crap out of me. But anyway, I'm going to see if this plug-in, oh, there's right there. I think that is both ends, and I think those pinned connectors like that will go right into that, so it'll have a nice, you know, factory style plug-in on it. Now that's really cool, man. That's really cool. So I think what I'm gonna do is go in there to eBay and start looking for tilt levers and see if I can find one that's like this, because I mean, I'll ask Steve before I do it, but to me this needs to have black ends on it. It just looked better. So tell you what I might do on this hazard button, and that's the other thing, is this column, it has a hazard switch in it, so we can have actually hazards on the car, because these cars didn't have hazards. I don't have hazards on my car. I'm running a stock column and stuff. I mean, you can add you can add a hazard switch in there yourself. There's lots of info probably on the internet on how to do that, but this button unscrews out of there. And I'll tell you what I'm thinking about doing is putting some really thin fine line pinstriping tape that I have down in that groove down in there, and then painting this all black, and then pull that tape off, and it'll have a chrome little ring around it. I think that'll look awesome. But this car, I have to try to keep this classic styling. I mean, the way he's going with the car with the wheels, and he's doing tuck and roll upholstery, you know, it's going to look like something that would have been in his parking lot at high school in 1981. So that's just what I would do, you know what I mean? But I think I'll go in there and see what I can find on that eBay. All right, I'm here on eBay, and I want to show you guys, when you find a kit, of course this is for a column shift, but you know, since it's a floor shift column, it doesn't have the shift lever, but you can see every one of these levers has that same 3-groove knob on it. Until you get down here, there's what he has on his turn signal stock. So to me, these ends look more stock. They look more original. And look at that, $16.99, and you get the hazard one that matches. So I think that's a pretty good buy for that. All right, guys, I'm in my car here, and I want to show you. Anyway, this is something you would see on a lot of like sport trucks in 80s and 90s. You know, C10s, stuff like that, maybe G-bodies, not a 55 Chevy. And this is what I like better. It looks a little bit more classic styled, but this thing is awful short. I mean, that tilt lever is longer than that turn signal switch, because the turn signal switch goes in pretty far. But for a stock knob like that, I think that looks better than this. It's big, it's bulky, and I don't think it looks very nice, you know what I mean? Again, I'll call Steve and see what he wants to do. It's not my car, we'll do whatever, but to me, masking this off and etch priming black the end of these, I think that would look better and look more classy. Because then you'll have a tilt column in your car and no one will notice it. Well, dang it. I called Steve and talked to him about them levers and stuff, and I was telling him that the easy wiring kit came with the correct connector, but I just pulled these out of the bag, and I need the other one that goes with this one. Damn it. Or the other one that goes with this one. Shoot. There should have been one on that column. There should have been one on there. But there's no telling where that is. I'm sure this kit came with a bunch of pieces, you know, a parts baggie, but we don't know where that is. This was kind of half-ass installed in the car from the previous shop, but anyway, that was the one I was hoping. I was hoping that was the piece for that, but it's not. So I guess I need to go see if I can find one of those. Dang it. Well, I set the tilt straight because it was tilted up. I tilted it straight so I could sand all this. So this is more of a brushed finish, and where somebody had installed it before, I mean, this thing it's just chewed up, man, and you see some of this outside the firewall. Anyway, I found a little ding up here too, which I think is kind of surprising. Actually, it's a high spot right there. But this is not like this was stamped out because it has a rolled edge. It's just rough, man. I don't know what this is going to look like polished. I hope it looks pretty good, but I'll just have to wait and see. But anyway, I've got my angle grinder, and I've put some 800 grit on here. And then I'll have to go to 1,000, then 12, then 15, then 2,000, then 25, and then I'll buff it. But this will end up, you know, stainless steel. It's just like on the side of a car. You know, when you buff that stuff, it looks really, really nice. Anyway, I lifted it up this way, and I hear something in there. And stuff's falling out of it. And I don't know what that is. It must be a dirt dauber nest. I think that's what that is. It's a dirt dauber nest. So what I did, the shaft's a little rusty too. Anyway, what I did is I grabbed this, and it's hard to turn. It's like gritty sounding. That should spin so nice, and it does not. Like it's turning the whole column. It shouldn't do that. You hear that? Golly, man. So it stops at one point when you turn it. This thing should spin like there's no tomorrow. It's getting bound up. So I think that needs to be taken apart And, you know, maybe that dirt dauber nest got bound up in that stuff. I don't know, man. But it's got all kinds of dirt buildup around that stuff there from... This thing's never been used. It's a new column, but it was new probably, I don't know, 8 years, 10 years. It's been sitting without a steering wheel on it, so I could imagine it's... Look at that. Oh, it's freaking sand, man. Can you hear that? I mean, it could just be like shop dust, but that's kind of similar to what we found in the engine. What they'd left the intake off for a long time there before. Golly, I'm gonna have to take this column apart, man. It's gonna be taken apart, cleaned, and re-greased. I don't know how much these columns are new. I mean, this can be, you know, redone, but I sure can't install it with it binding up and grinding like that. It's just gonna end up tearing up the bearings in it, leaving whatever's in it in it. It gets to that point right there and it just sticks, man. Oh well. More work. Here we go. Well, I think I'm gonna have to go rougher than 800 because it is it's rough, man. See if I can get the light just right on that. See them lines? They're deep. You can feel them with your fingers. So I have to get that out. If I don't sand that smooth and just polish it, it's just gonna be look like a ribbed up polished mess, you know what I mean? So it needs to be smoothed out. That kind of sucks, man. I gotta do this entire steering column. But I'll tell you what I ought to do is probably go ahead and take it apart and clean it up, get it re-greased and put it back together, because there ain't no sense in polishing it and then, you know, scuffing it. But there's that little ding. That's what I was looking for while we were. A little dinger right there. And if I take the column apart, I might be able to get that pushed out. So, yeah, there's a lot of, look at all that crud coming out of there. So a dirt dauber nest's gotten put in there somehow. I don't know how the hell, oh, right there, there's where they went in at. So I grabbed a Phillips screwdriver and started to take out the 3 screws, Phillips screws holding in the turn signal switch. Every one of these is really loose. Like when I put the screwdriver on there, there's nothing. Look at that. Golly. This is the one I already loosened right here. I'd only done one. That one right there was super loose. That one's loose too. Golly, oh, why don't people take more pride in their work when they're doing something, man? Man, this is scary. I'm not sure how that shaft comes out of there. This is not like a typical GM steering column you'd find, you know, on a lot of GM stuff. This is, it's a little bit on the different side, but the bearing, which I think is strange, it has like ball bearing cage and it's half of it's exposed on this, but it looks like, I don't know if that's a washer or a snap ring behind this nut, so I'm wondering if I need to take this nut off. And it's probably a certain torque, you know what I mean? I don't know about this. And there's a big giant flathead screw in there, and I'm not sure. It has a paint mark on it. That usually means something. So I guess I'm gonna have to go do a little research. Maybe there's a video on this, but the problem is I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know what column this is. I don't know if this is an I did it or if this is just a, you know, a cheap knockoff. I mean, I don't know, man. But the problem is it's gotten so much gritty dirt down here in the bearings that it's locking it up, and it's all really, really grindy sounding, which is going to just ruin the bearings in it over just a little bit of time. So once some bearings start getting messed up from being, you know, contaminated, the column shaft will get loose in there. So I'm trying to figure out, I better go watch a video, because at this point I don't know, man. This has turned into a fiasco, as usual. So of course that ding that was in this is directly on top of the column. This is where the tilt lever comes out. That's the turn signal switch hole. So this will be sitting upright just like that. So that just sucked, man. So I basically just used a flat blade screwdriver and got up under there and just sit there and work that little ding out, mostly out. And you know, it obviously put a few little high spots in it, so I went back and kind of did some light tappy action. And now I'm using like a generic jeweler's file here and doing an X pattern and just trying to get that leveled back off. And then I'll have to go through all the grades of paper, which I have to do anyway, but can't have a ding on top of that column right there. So I can't really figure out how to get this apart, and I wanted to pull this bearing out of it so I could completely clean it and then re-grease it and put it back in, and I can't get it out, so it kind of sucks. I gotta be careful because that's plastic. That black is plastic, so that's definitely cheap, you know, having a plastic bearing in there. But and that just may be the way all these aftermarket columns are. I mean, who knows? But the only thing I can think of is go in there with a toothbrush and some cleaner and try to get it cleaned the best I can and try to pack it with grease the best I can and just call it a day. But it just doesn't, it gets bound up at one point, you know what I mean? It needs to be completely taken apart, thoroughly cleaned, the bearings cleaned and re-greased. But I guess I'll have to watch a video to see how it comes apart. But at least I got the ding out of the top of the column. Alright, so this is the turn signal switch lever that was on the column. And Steve just texted me and said he ordered that kit, so I'm not going to use this one. The one in the kit looks a little bit longer because this to me is too short anyway. But anyway, I polished the stem here and then I masked it off. And then I used a red Scotch-Brite and scuffed up that end, used wax and grease remover on a rag, then I went back and tack ragged it off. And then that is black etching primer, SEM brand, SEM brand. And to me, that looks classy, like that looks nice. So it doesn't look so generic, but that'll be on the column. And the tilt lever, I'll do the same, and the hazard switch I'll do the same, because the entire column is going to be polished. I don't need every bit of this polish. It's going to be too much, you know what I mean? It's going to look like somebody has dipped the whole thing in the chrome vat, you know what I mean? But I think that looks really, really sweet, and that's why I was saying I think when you compare the design of those two on the knob end of it, this is way generic looking compared to that. This is nice, don't get me wrong, this is nice, but I like this better for a classic look. You know, if Steve's car was lowered and had big wheels and big brakes and, you know, it was all pro toured out, this would look to me okay. But, you know, everybody's different, but that's just the way I think about it. I think it'd be neat to keep the polished ribs in there and then paint this whole stem piece here, knob, black like I did that, and then pull the tape off and have that chrome under there. I think that would look good. But right now it's just too much, you know what I mean? That's just to me. But yeah, that'll work, man. That'll look good. So I've been sanding on this column. I haven't polished it yet, but that'll look so much better sticking out of there, in my opinion.